All right, my friends, welcome back to All Cars. I'm John, and today I want to talk about Vinfast, the Vietnamese car company.
Hey, Vinfast, let's start.
Okay, get ready for the future of mobility.
That I did a video on about 4 months ago, probably, that they were planning on coming to America with 2 EV-only cars, SUVs actually. And to my utter surprise, that video has started to get a lot more traction very, very recently. It just suddenly shot up. And I haven't really heard much about them, and then all of a sudden they hit the news again. And I started doing some research. Well, the reason is because this little company went to the LA Auto Show and did a big unveiling of their 2 sport utilities, the E35 and the E36. And
now, without any further ado, it's our pleasure to unveil the newest cars from Vinfast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Michael Loscheller to unveil the VF E35. And now Mr. David Lyon unveils the VF E36.
And they are planning on releasing these cars, starting sales in late 2022, second half of 2022. And they've also said that while these cars are going to be originally built and then brought to America from Vietnam, they're planning on locally doing manufacturing. This is really fascinating to me because this little company didn't exist 4 years ago or 5 years ago. They're one of the top selling brands, manufacturers in Vietnam, and they sold a total of 30,000 cars. But they seem to be plowing ahead, and I find myself falling on the side of, I wouldn't bet against these guys, okay? And that's not fair, actually. Their American CEO is female. What they've released are a couple of pretty darn good-looking vehicles styled by Pininfarina. I think they're a little awkward-looking myself, but I like the fact that the V logo is integrated into the front and it ends up with a nice little chevron look. I like that a lot. The rear end of the 35 looks for all the world like, well, the Mustang EV. And looking at them side by side, it's interesting to look at the size difference. It looks for all the worlds, there's no dimensions that I can find yet, but it looks for all the world like one is on the CRV RAV4 side, but maybe a little smaller. And then the other one looks big, like it might be Palisade size. So it's a pretty big swath. Now, if you can't tell from my accent, I do not live in LA, so I could not go to the auto show and see these things. I'm relying totally on Vinfast's website and articles I've read and video to get an overall opinion. And this is really interesting. This company came from a noodle shop and became a huge conglomerate in Vietnam, and then they spun off and started building cars. And they have just got this relentless expansion plan, because not only in America, but they're planning on moving into the European market, at least on the Netherlands, France, and Germany, as I recall. They're opening offices in each. They've got the office here in America over in San Francisco already. They've moved their CEO over here. And if you go to their website, you can look at careers and see they are currently hiring 12 different positions. That sounds pretty real. And they also acknowledge, because one of my big complaints would be like, this is super, super expensive. Well, they acknowledge they're going to need more money, and they're planning on an IPO. It's been delayed, but they're planning on an IPO for Vinfast America here on one of our stock exchanges. Normally when a manufacturer, certainly from a smaller country that's not used to working in, say, Japan and America, their initial products are really rough around the edges, and they have to sell at a discount to make up for it. You think of Yugo, think of the Japanese when they first came to America. But Vinfast seems to be pulling the resources together to launch a good product at the beginning. In fact, in their introductory video, and you can go to their website and watch it, they actually talk about how they build the motors in-house. They stamp in-house. They're doing it all in-house and pulling resources where they need it, like working with Pininfarina to bring a world-class product from the beginning. Some of the articles I've read where they've actually seen these in person in the auto show, it seems like the smaller one, the E35, is going to have about a 310 mile range. The larger one will have about 400, I think it was 22 mile range. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn impressive. And what's fascinating is when you see the picture of the E35 inside, there's no traditional gauge cluster in front of it. They've got the big screen there, honking up everything in the middle, but they're actually going to project all the information up onto the window. So it's not going to have an instrument cluster. It's just going to purely be a heads-up display. Interesting thinking. So overall, I think they're styled pretty well. I'm not super obsessed with them. I think the interior on one of them looks pretty darn good. Now, apparently the E36 is much further away from starting production. The one at the auto show doesn't even have an interior. So we're really just looking at one, but dang, it looks pretty good. And it's super, super ambitious, where 4 years to moving to America and launching in Europe at the same time, and they're alternately not setting any sales goals, while at the same time saying they've reduced their sales goals due to the chip issues, the chip supply issues. Originally, they were looking for 56,000 units worldwide. Now they're aiming for 15. So ponder that for a minute. This little company is moving to America and Europe, and they want 15,000 sales. Isn't that like a month of a Toyota Camry? I mean, it's a ridiculously low number. This sounds expensive, but they're taking a somewhat innovative approach, similar to Tesla, of you're going to be able to order it online, and they're going to have showrooms. They're trying to set up about 60 of them across the United States where you can go feel and touch and drive the car and order it online. And they'll have service people that they will hire that will come out to you to fix it if there's an issue. If they need to, they'll take it back to a shop and work on it, give you a loaner. And they've also announced, I'm looking for a lot more details on this and I can't find it yet, that the batteries will be leased. So if you keep your car and they come out with a brand new battery technology, they can bolt in a new one. Interesting. Very, very interesting, because I know that say the Tesla batteries are tested to 1 million miles, but I know it's a big, big cost, much like replacing an engine, or more expensive than an engine in an ICE car. And it's something I'm concerned about, wearing out of the batteries and new technology surpassing it. Well, if you could just lease the battery, the motors and everything else are really, really durable. This is interesting, and I want to see more information on it before I get too excited. I don't like payments. I like paid off cars that I drive for 10 years. But I really like what they're doing. And here's the deal. Vinfast overall makes me a little uneasy. It's a communist country, and you've got a guy who started a noodle shop in Russia, suddenly manufactures noodles. The next thing you know, he's in Vietnam building healthcare facilities and everything else, and he's a huge conglomerate, decides to roll out here and start building cars, and somehow just keeps building and building and building at an absolute breakneck speed. You'll never convince me that there's not a lot of cash flowing from the government to support all this. And much like after the war with World War II, Japan became our friend and amongst our closest allies. I'm not sure Vietnam's quite there on a geopolitical framework. But maybe we should be open to cars from Vietnam. It'll be very interesting to see not only how they perform, do they live up to their range expectations, but how's the quality relative to what the Koreans, the Japanese, and the Americans are building. But the point is, in a relatively short period of time, regardless of whether it's actually getting government support or not. This company has grown like a weed, and that tells me it's got superlative leadership. And I like what Vinfast is doing, the people they've put in place. I'm not willing to bet against this company. I don't know I'm going to be an early adopter. I'm not going to go buy it. I think EVs are a little overhyped right now. I think it's a little premature. But consider the next new car company to come to America, to import to America. They're not hedging their bets with engines. They're purely an EV company. And while we've got Tesla or Lucid or Rivian, for example, the rest of the manufacturers, like Ford and GM and Hyundai, are coming out with individual EV models while they ramp up to something. VinFast is just bypassing all that and coming here. Here's mainstream models, and this is all we got. I gotta say, I kind of find that impressive. And I'll close with this: is in an interview, their global CEO didn't want to make forecasts for sales 2022. They wanted to focus on selling what they can and focusing on the customer and the experience. And I like this. Apparently they have a very good reputation and are much loved in their home country. Now that might be a little bit of home field advantage, but I think back to Saturn. Saturn built a good car, not the best necessarily first out of the gate, but they had an exceptional customer service, exceptional sales process, great after the sales service, and they built a family community around a four-door sedan. Not Corvettes, not Mustangs, a small four-door car. I want to see if VinFast is going to do that. And if so, I'm not willing to bet against them if the cars are decent and if they're reasonably priced in the market. Let me know your thoughts below, guys. Are you excited about this company or not? Because I got to admit, I'm getting there, and I'm looking forward to driving one. But we've got a ways to go, about a year. Thanks, guys.